Hi guys, welcome back to Lexalexus. We're now predicting week 40 within the Championship 24-25 season. As always guys, you can always get involved with you predicting this set of Championship games as well. We've got 12 games to predict. Obviously yesterday we saw Derby play against Preston, but we are including their games as well this time around as well. And it's going to be a really tight schedule of this sort of weekend game followed by a midweek game. It's going to be very, very hectic, very, very busy. But this is the business end of the season where we're going to see who gets promoted, who gets relegated, and who's going to get into the top 6. So grab your popcorn because this is going to be the really entertaining part of the season. If you guys like what you see, please smash the like button. It really does help. Please do hit the subscribe button too. It really does help. And please also share the channel too. All 3 of these things are free to do and they really help. But without any further ado, let's start predicting week 40 in the Championship. We commence with Friday's game with Blackburn going up against Middlesbrough. Certainly the form book would suggest that Middlesbrough are the stronger side compared to the two. Blackburn are in a losing run of 4 consecutive games. Valerian Ismail is still looking for his first win as Blackburn Rovers manager, only picking up the 1 point so far in his 5 games in charge of Blackburn Rovers in the Championship. Middlesbrough's away form though has been very, very patchy, and Blackburn actually have a pretty decent record against Middlesbrough in their recent head-to-head history. So the stats are telling me whilst the form book is certainly favouring Middlesbrough, it was a great result for Middlesbrough the other day as well for them to now get themselves in a really decent position. They're now joint on points with Bristol City, and to complete that turnaround against Oxford showed a little bit of grit because they were certainly booed off in the first half, but in the second half they really turned it on, and they can certainly cause Blackburn some problems. But actually, as a prediction, I could easily see Middlesbrough also falling a bit short with their inconsistent away form, and just with the teams in that region of the table being inconsistent as a whole, I won't be surprised if Middlesbrough do drop points here. As a prediction, I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw. I still think Blackburn will still be looking for their first win, but they really need to turn this around. Otherwise, they will fall in danger of actually falling into the bottom half of the table, and they're now down to 11th. They really need to turn around their form sooner rather than later. Now, the first one of the early Saturday games, we've got Coventry going up against Burnley. This could be a crucial game, actually, in regards to the promotion race. Burnley, at this case, they are within touching distance of getting second place. They're joint on points with Leeds. It was a great weekend for them to pick up a win against Bristol City. A tough game on paper, but they managed the game beautifully. Coventry, they themselves are right now in a pretty sticky situation. They got out in a pretty poor defeat against Sheffield United. It ended up as 3-1 in the end, which certainly made the scoreline a little bit more respectable. Sheffield United definitely bossed them for a lot of that game. So they'll be wanting to try and get a good response here, and Coventry at home have been so good as of late. I mean, beating Sunderland recently by 3-0 is no easy feat. And Burnley need to be worried about that. But Burnley's away form, but their defence as a whole has been sensational. However, I'm going to do something pretty amazing. I'm actually going to predict Burnley to concede a goal here. I think Coventry will pose Burnley with many problems. But I think it will still be Burnley that edge out a winner here. I'm going to go for a 2-1 away victory to Burnley. Can't remember the last time I've actually predicted Burnley to concede a goal, but I do think this game might be a situation where they'll do so. But I do think if Burnley score first, I think it's going to be very predictable and Burnley will see this game through. But it's when Coventry, if they score first, I think we'll get a real fierce game on our hands. Let me know what you think of this game in the comments. Now a very crucial game that affects both ends of the table. It's Luton Town going up against Leeds United. So Luton Town as of late have actually picked up their form in a really good time of the season. They've picked up 2 away wins in a row. And I would dare say their last 2 home performances have not been too bad at all. That draw against Middlesbrough could have easily been 3 points if they took their chances. And they also beat Portsmouth quite recently at home as well. So some really big results for Luton Town. And they have certainly made Kenilworth Road not an easy place to pick up 3 points, and Leeds United cannot afford difficult games. I think Leeds United fans are kind of going in a little bit of a panic station mode at the moment because they have dropped points at a game that they definitely know that they should not have dropped points. They are playing a Swansea side with really not anything to play for at this stage of the season, and they've made it difficult for themselves. It could have been worse, but Medias saved a penalty, but he went from 0 to 0. Especially with the first goal from Harry Darling conceding an absolute clanger, which have essentially led Swansea to that game. But Swansea fought back, and Nonto, we thought that maybe he scored a winning goal for Leeds in the 86th minute, but I think Leeds just were not concentrated. They didn't manage the game, so it brings me a concern that Leeds maybe are just not professionally seeing games out at the moment. And I can see Luton getting a really big opportunity here, but as a prediction, I don't think Luton are going to have enough to beat Leeds. I mean, Leeds is quality. On their day, they could turn any team around. But I think it's going to be a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this one, which will certainly not be a massive favour for either one of these sides. But I do sense that both of these sides will have their moments of quality on the day. Last one of the early Saturday games, we've got West Brom going up against Sunderland. So this game on paper might be a crucial one because it could very well be a game we might see when we get round to the playoffs, if West Brom especially do finish in 5th position, which certainly could be a possibility at the moment. Both teams had very contrasting results last weekend. West Brom lost it very late against Norwich, which it felt more of a very important win to Norwich because it does keep their faint playoff hopes alive. And West Brom could have really used this opportunity to give themselves some breathing space. With the fact that Bristol City dropped points, it was a big opportunity missed to put some breathing space on them. So disappointing in a way. I think they had the better chances in that game as well, but just were not clinical. Sunderland were involved in a very gritty win against Millwall. Definitely not an easy team to get wins with a 1-0 win. And it certainly means Sunderland are just doing what they can to secure their 4th place position. And right now, they only need a matter of wins within their last 6 games, and they have secured that playoff place. They are within points away of securing it, and they could really look at this game, maybe if they get a good result, Sunderland, as a bit of a confidence boost leading into the playoffs. But here, West Brom have been a monster at home. They've certainly have picked up a majority of their points at home compared to their away form. Sunderland's away form has been okay, but it hasn't been perfect. It has thrown in some pretty poor results. I'm thinking of the 3-0 defeat recently against Coventry, another team in the playoffs. And I think West Brom could get 3 points here. I'm actually going to go for a West Brom 2-1 win. I think they can sneak 3 points in this one. And that will certainly be a very crucial win that can give West Brom fans a little bit of reassurance that maybe they could stick around the top 6 after this weekend. Now to the 3 o'clock kickoffs, we start off with Bristol City going up against Watford. So a very crucial game. We were just speaking about Bristol City when previewing West Brom. This is a big game because they obviously lost their last game against Burnley. It was a tight 1-0 defeat, but the scoreline was certainly very flattering. I did sense with how much Burnley suffocated Bristol City to a lack of chances. I do think Burnley definitely could have scored more. But Bristol City, I think what they did really, really well, they kept themselves in the game. And they're certainly being a side that is going to be very difficult to get a really good result against. And they're still in a really good position, Bristol City, to still get within the top 6. And this is a big opportunity to potentially push a team fighting for top 6, Watford, out of the conversation. Now, Watford need a lot more to do. I do think they still have a good playoff hope kind of alive, a little bit more from Norwich, which I already previously mentioned, but their recent defeat against Oxford, for instance, was really ill-opportuned and ill-timed, and following that off with only a draw against bottom of the table Plymouth at home, I don't think they're getting the results that they need at this stage of the season to guarantee their place in the playoffs. And I think Watford just are a very difficult side to really put your finger on and what sort of team you're going to get. But one thing that has been a little bit more certain is that Bristol City have pulled up some really good results at home this season. As a prediction, I think I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Bristol City, and that will certainly put the pressure on West Brom, and it will emphasise West Brom's importance to try and get a result against Sunderland at the Hawthorns. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. I can see the playoff race really starting to hot up now. So we've got Millwall going up against Portsmouth. So different results for both sides last weekend. Millwall, of course, were involved in the defeat against Sunderland. That does put them in a pretty difficult position now to try and get within the playoffs. Obviously not impossible, and they could definitely are capable enough of putting a run together that could get a late charge there. But it certainly means that with poor results at this stage of the season, it does intensify just the severity of each subsequent game going through to the end of the season, depending what the team is chasing for. And I do think this is a very crucial game for Millwall if they do want to get into the playoffs. Portsmouth certainly have not shown a really good ray of light away from home, but Portsmouth are just doing what they're doing. They're picking up the points at Fratton Park, which has proven to be a fortress this season. They're on 45 points though, and following the sides at the bottom actually picking up great results last weekend, it means that they're still kind of earning points at the same rate as Portsmouth. And what it does mean is that Portsmouth cannot be too complacent with their poor away form. Otherwise, they could find themselves sleepwalking back into the conversation of relegation. But as a prediction here, I just have a very sneaky feeling it's going to be very, very low scoring. And I sense that Millwall will want to get a response from their last game, and I just think Portsmouth will fire too many blanks. I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory to Millwall. I think it'll be low scoring, pretty tight, but I do think it will be Millwall's time to shine with a win, and it will certainly be a crucial win for the playoff race. Next up, we've got Oxford going up against Sheffield United. So certainly, again, two very different results. If we'll speak about Oxford first, they took the lead against Middlesbrough and actually were at a good portion of that game looking like that they could have actually caused Middlesbrough some problems. Unfortunately, in the second half, they did seem to run out of steam. And even if they picked up a point, it would have been a really good point in context with sides not being able to pick up wins in that region of the table. But it is no points for Oxford. And actually, they turned out to be one of the sides worse off compared to the sides in that bottom part of the table, following the fact that a lot of the bottom three either picked up draws and wins. With Sheffield United, they picked up a really good win against Coventry and have made a very big statement, and they've now got a tiny bit of breathing space at the top of the table following the fact that Leeds have dropped points. So they are very much in the driving seat now. They have still got that tough game against Burnley, which I cannot ignore, but Sheffield United are doing everything right. They are doing as well as they can do with their other games, and if they do end up with a bit of a points cushion against Burnley, if they do not beat Burnley, it may not be the end of the world and they still may be able to go up, but they will have to monitor Leeds' movements very, very carefully here. And they are going to be playing last out of the top three this weekend. So especially if Luton gets a good result against Leeds and then you see the likes of Burnley slip over against Coventry, it gives Sheffield United a big opportunity, but could increase the pressure of this game as well. And obviously Oxford are fighting for their lives. It can be a very awkward game. But with the abundance of quality for what I saw quite recently from Sheffield United, I mean, that game against Coventry was sensational. They could have really blown them away if they tried. I mean, they did at a stage when they were 3-0 up. Gustavo Hamer was amazing. Tyrese Campbell was amazing. So many players stepped up. Ryan Brewster, actually, quite recently is now starting to pick up some form again too. So I'm really happy how the Sheffield United side is looking, and I think they will carry on their form here. Not a great result for Oxford, but unfortunately I just think they're playing a really tough opponent here in Sheffield United. I'm going to go for a 2-0 away victory to Sheffield United here. It would certainly put some pressure on Oxford since they're certainly not safe from the drop as of yet, but for Sheffield United's sake, this will be a huge result in context of the promotion. Next up, we've got Plymouth and Norwich. I'm quite interested to see how this game is going to go. Different results for both, but both managed to pick up, something from their games. Plymouth managed to end up with an away point against Watford. I mean, points away from home for Plymouth have been really hard to come by. But they're at the stage of the season now where they really need to start picking up wins now. I mean, following the fact that Derby only just won yesterday, meaning that actually to get out of the bottom three, I mean, they are 8 points of safety, Plymouth now. They need to start picking up wins ASAP. If they don't win this game, they could find themselves 11 points of safety, and that will surely mean that they are running out of opportunities. They will only therefore have up to 5 games left, so they really need to pick up a win now. But if you remember, they put 5 goals past this Norwich side last time they faced against each other at home park. Norwich picked up a really good result, a crucial result. Josh Sargent managing to score very late on in the game, a very slow burner in that game, but it does keep Norwich's faint playoff hopes alive. But anything else but a win for Norwich, I think it will be game over for the playoffs. 5 points, it's going to be quite difficult to accrue at this stage of the season, in my opinion. I think this will be Plymouth's game to lose here. If anything else but a win for Plymouth, I think they're down almost for certain now. But a win, I think, will make things interesting, especially if sides above them slip up this weekend. And I'm going to go for a Plymouth win, actually, just based on how strong their home form has been as a whole. Norwich's away form has been very bad, actually. I'm going to go for a 2-1 home victory to Plymouth, and that should surely spice things up in the bottom part of the table. That's what I hope with this game. Let me know what you think of this game in the comments. Next is Preston versus Stoke. This is going to be an interesting game to call. So obviously Preston have played a lot of games recently. They played against Aston Villa in the FA Cup. That then followed with yesterday's game against Derby, where they were a little bit off the pace. They lost by 2-0 in the end. And I am seeing their squad is looking a little bit depleted. I know Freddie Woodman did pick up an injury, so they've not got their first choice goalkeeper, I believe, for the rest of the season. So I do think that puts Preston in a slight disadvantage, and they will be more fatigued than Stoke, who have had a whole week to recover from their last game. And then it was amazing 3-1 victory against QPR. It was exactly the result that they needed. A perfect statement win to state that they really mean business to try and stay up in the Championship. And right now, I honestly think with the way that Stoke are at the moment, I think one more win will almost guarantee them staying up. So a win for Stoke here I think will be crucial, but this is a Preston side who have not lost a lot at home this season. But I have mentioned already for the fact that squad's going to be fatigued. There's not a huge amount of depth in that squad. There's a lot of the squad that's actually out injured. And I think Stoke carrying on that momentum, I think Stoke could go on a run now at the end of the season. And I think it's the typical thing with Stoke, but they go on a really, really good promising run, and then in the follow-up season, that form just disintegrates into nothingness. So I'm going to go for a strong Stoke finish this season. I'm going to go for a 2-1 away victory to Stoke, actually. So a rare home defeat for Preston, but I think Preston kind of now with nothing to play for, squad quite thin, I think it will play to Stoke's hands. And Stoke will know, I think, winning this game will secure Championship survival, or at least it'll put them in a really prominent position to survive the drop. What an important game this is. QPR versus Cardiff. So, differing reasons for why this is important. I mean, it's all related to the relegation battle, but the team's forms and where they are on the table really speaks volumes. QPR are in a little bit of a freefall. Their form is certainly not very good at this moment of time, which is a shame really, because I know their last home game against Leeds, maybe they could have picked up 3 points there, but just conceded too many chances and they had to settle for the draw in the end. And they're on 45 points at the moment. Cardiff on 41. But 41 points sees you in the bottom 3. So QPR are not far away from that. And if Cardiff do pick up a win here, they will close the gap on QPR up to 1 point. And that will really start to drag QPR back into the relegation battle here. Now, Cardiff were only able to pick up a draw against Sheffield Wednesday. I did know they'd take the lead in that game, but Sheffield Wednesday eventually grew into that game and managed to sneak a draw in the end. A bit devastating for Cardiff's point of view, because it certainly would have given them a little bit of breathing space for the bottom 3. And following that, Derby are just carrying on their impressive run of form. It does mean Cardiff are the team that loses out on that and have now returned to the bottom 3 after spending a good couple of weeks and months away from it. So Cardiff City fans can't afford their heads to drop now. They need to really rally forward and look at each game as a cup final now. But QPR, have they been a bit too complacent and have now found themselves back into the relegation battle? Quite possibly, especially if the result here is not a good one. But I don't know. I feel like Cardiff's away form is not particularly strong. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Pretty unhelpful. But following the fact that Hull City are just above Cardiff in the table, if they don't win, then it does mean a draw will be enough for Cardiff to get out of the bottom three. But it is so close in that region of the table. And quite honestly, keep your eyes on QPR, because if they can't improve their form, they will eventually start entering or re-entering the relegation picture. Let me know what you think of that in the comments down below. With some genius signposting, I spoke about Sheffield Wednesday and Hull within the last minute, and now we're talking about both of them here. They're playing against each other. This is going to be an interesting game. Sheffield Wednesday's home form, you know, you've got to say as it is, it's dreadful this season. Only Hull City, ironically enough, have picked up less points at home than Sheffield Wednesday. They picked up that draw, of course, against Cardiff, as I mentioned. Hull with a very bad result. They certainly would have been one of the sides with the worst results in the Championship last weekend, losing to relegation threatened Luton Town by 1-0 at home with a really bizarre own goal that it has to be said. But it does really put the pressure on Hull City. But these sorts of games, Hull have actually been picking up some decent results in. And with the fact that Sheffield Wednesday are not good at home, Hull could certainly look at this as an opportunity to get 3 points here. But realistically, I think with what the squads have got to offer, I think it's going to be a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in this game. Again, pretty unhelpful for Sheffield Wednesday's chances of trying to get into the top 6. But for Hull City's sake, they're going to be wanting to get a win to try and get some breathing space there. So yeah, another pretty unhelpful result and a lot of draws in my opinion. I'm struggling to separate teams this weekend. Our last game to predict is Swansea going up against Derby. This, I think, is going to be a close one. So, Swansea with a very impressive performance against Leeds, of course. They did not drop their heads. They certainly had to fight tooth and nail to try even get a result. You know, conceding an 86-minute goal and not letting your head drop, you know, it's a testament to really strong mentality. And I think Swansea as a whole have been picking up some good results since parting ways with Luke Williams. Derby, of course, are now reaping the benefits of John Eustace. It's 4 consecutive wins, and because of that, Derby are now in 20th place. Finally, they're out of the relegation zone. And you'd think a good result here might encourage Derby to start really climbing and getting some breathing space from the relegation-threatened sides. But as we've seen from last weekend, we're seeing teams in that region of the table starting to pick up points more consistently. There's more to play for. You know, these sides do not want to go down, and they're really going for it. So Derby can't afford to keep their eye off the ball for too long, despite getting out of the bottom 3 only by a matter of points as well. But I think for the way with Swansea are playing, I do sense with these on the beach sides, which I do associate Swansea being one of those sides, I do think there's a bit of a carefree in the way that they play, whether that is, you know, they're not really quite trying, or that they just play with a lot of freedom, playing for contracts and playing for first team football. And I feel like we actually had the positive end of that with their really positive performance against Leeds. And I think this could be a good result. I think it's going to be a tough one. Derby on the road has not been as strong as their home form. I'm going to go for a narrow 1-0 win to Swansea. But a draw, honestly, would not surprise me here with the way that Derby have been playing. So guys, these are my predictions for week 40. Let me know of your thoughts in the comments down below. Please also predict the games as well, because then you guys can have a chance to score some points on the Lexalexus Football Prediction League, which I will be keeping up to date whenever I can. We've only got a small handful of games left to predict, and certainly very competitive if you look at the last community post I made showing the league. So certainly still lots to play for, and there will be prizes for the top 3. This will have to wrap it up for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do hit the subscribe button if you've not done so, as we're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. That'd be absolutely amazing if we can get there somehow by the end of the season. Maybe not, but it'll be nice to go for a really good push. Please do hit the like button too, and please also share the channel too. All 3 of these things are free to do, and they really help. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary for so in this video, and as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.